It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. In his sights, Donald Trump says Sir Keir Starmer and the French president haven't done anything over the war in Ukraine, as he again criticizes the country's leader.
We've had not such good talks with Ukraine. They don't have any cards, but they play it tough. But we're not going to let this continue. This war is terrible.
After anger in Israel and appeals from her family, the reports Hamas tonight has now handed over the body of hostage Shiri Bibas. The sobering update on the health of the Pope. He's not out of danger and will remain in hospital for at least another week. Cutting to the core, Apple removes its highest level of data protection for UK users after a row with the government. We see the measures to sniff out the risk of drug spiking as ministers reveal when it will become a specific offence. The fake face with a far-right message. We investigate how AI is being used to woo German voters ahead of Sunday's election. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. Sir Keir Starmer will fly to Washington next week for his first meeting with Donald Trump since the president's re-election. The backdrop, the American leader's continued verbal assault on Ukraine's leader, who he accused today of having no cards to negotiate with. But also, for the first time, Donald Trump criticized Sir Keir, saying he and Emmanuel Macron had not done anything to resolve the war. More on that from our correspondent David Blevins in Washington.
All smiles and handshakes at a meeting of governors. The president among friends at the White House.
It's a nice, friendly group. Lovely.
Where his warmest words were for an old Cold War enemy.
I've had very good talks with Putin, and I've had not such good talks with Ukraine. They don't have any cards, but they play it tough. But we're not going to let this continue. This war is terrible. We have people that better get to the table and get it ended.
Earlier, he told Fox News Radio that the French president and British Prime Minister could have done more on Ukraine.
We have Macron coming to see you for France and then Starmer for the UK this week to move forward.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything either. The war is going on. There's no meetings with Russia, no nothing.
Right.
You know, they haven't done anything. And Macron's a friend of mine, and I've met with the Prime Minister, and you know, he's a very nice guy, but nobody's done anything.
Frustration in Washington, but what sounded like optimism in Ukraine. A meeting with US envoy Keith Kellogg producing a positive report from President Zelenskyy.
A meeting that restores hope. With General Kellogg, we discussed the frontline situation, the need to release all our prisoners held in Russia, and the necessity of a reliable and clear system of security guarantees.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
Boasting about his cuts to federal spending, Elon Musk tore into President Zelenskyy, accusing Ukraine of sending soldiers to their deaths for money.
All right!
National Security Advisor Mike Waltz took a more pragmatic approach, but still predicted that Ukraine will grant America access to its rare minerals as part of an agreement to end the war.
Here's the bottom line. President Zelenskyy is going to sign that deal. And you will see that in the very short term. And that is good for Ukraine. What better could you have for Ukraine than to be in an economic partnership with the United States?
It's taken just a week for Ukraine's fortunes to change dramatically. The negotiating tactic of the man in there, in holding President Zelensky's feet to the fire, is putting serious pressure on US-European relations. A matter of days before President Macron and Sir Keir Starmer arrive at the White House.
And David is live for us in Washington tonight. David, Donald Trump has been speaking again in the last hour. What's he had to say, especially in relation to Ukraine?
Yes, President Trump has been speaking at the swearing-in ceremony for his new Commerce Secretary. He told reporters again that Putin and Zelensky need to work together, effectively equating them. He repeated his earlier claim that Moscow wants a deal now. Of course, talks between Washington and Moscow will resume in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. Also echoing that view expressed by his national security advisor earlier, he spoke about Ukraine being close to agreeing to give the United States access to its natural resources as payback for wartime aid. You know, it's hard to believe it's just 2 days since Donald Trump described Zelensky as a dictator, called for fresh elections in Ukraine and accused Ukraine of starting the war. And there's been so much political noise since then. Democrats hitting back strongly, even some Republicans hitting back more gently. Lots of America's allies across Europe expressing solidarity with Ukraine right now. But despite all of that noise, nothing has changed. Rather than back down, Donald Trump is doubling down in this rather unconventional approach he's taken in his effort to bring this war to an end.
David Blevins with the latest there from Washington, D.C. David, thank you. Well, Donald Trump's former chief strategist has been accused of giving a Nazi-style salute at the conservative CPAC conference we saw in David's report. The president of France's far-right National Rally Party cancelled the speech at the conference in response, but Steve Bannon has told a journalist the moment was actually just a wave.
The only way that they win is we retreat, and we're not going to retreat. We're not going to surrender. We're not going to quit. Fight, fight, fight!
The heavens shake, Israel's prime minister said today about the deaths of 4 Israeli hostages in Gaza. Israel's defense forces said 2 of them, the young boys Ariel and Kfir Bibas, were killed with bare hands. Hamas says they died in an Israeli airstrike. The body of their mother, Shiri, may have been returned to Israel tonight. That's according to Hamas. Our international affairs correspondent Diana Magnay is in Jerusalem.
The discovery at the end of a painful day for Israel could hardly have been more cruel. Of the 4 bodies supposed to be returned from Hamas captivity, Israel's military confirming that after identification processes, Shiri, the mother of the 2 Bibas boys, had not come home. The body Hamas had said was hers was not, nor did it belong to any of the hostages still in Hamas captivity.
These Hamas monsters also cynically refused to bring back the boy's mother, Shiri, and sent the body of a Gazan woman instead, in brazen violation of the agreement. Today, the heavens shake. The entire civilized world should condemn these horrific murders.
No closure for Shiri's husband, Yarden, released by Hamas earlier this month. His sister, Ofri, with this message for Israel's Prime Minister.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, we did not receive an apology from you in this painful moment. For Ariel and Kfir's sake, and for Yarden's sake, we are not seeking revenge right now. We are asking for Shiri.
Hamas says there may have been a mix-up with the bodies, the result, they say, of an Israeli airstrike on the location where the family were being held, along with other Palestinians. It's a claim Israel's defense forces flatly deny.
Contrary to Hamas's lies, Ariel and Kfir were not killed in an airstrike. Ariel and Kfir Bibas were murdered by terrorists in cold blood. The terrorists did not shoot the 2 young boys. They killed them with their bare hands.
Tensions escalating still further with explosions on Thursday night on 3 buses in the town of Bat Yam, south of Tel Aviv, with identical unexploded bombs found on 2 others. No one was injured, but Israel has vowed to ramp up its military operation against militants in the West Bank, ongoing since the Gaza ceasefire was agreed. Hamas has released the names of the 6 living hostages due for release on Saturday as part of that ceasefire. 6 young men returned to Israel, more than 600 Palestinian prisoners to Gaza in the West Bank. But that's if it happens. This is a major setback to an already fragile process and a terrible blow for Israelis seeking at least some dignity for those that they have lost. Diana Magnay, Sky News, Jerusalem.
And let's bring you more now on the fate of the body of Shiri Bibas. Well, Hamas is reported to have released the body tonight to the Red Cross, which is said to be hers. Israeli medical authorities said forensic teams were preparing to examine the body. The Pope is not out of danger, his doctor said today, as they revealed he will need to remain in hospital with pneumonia for at least another week. The frailty of Pope Francis, who's 88, has led to concern about his immediate health and to speculation, including from a former cardinal, about whether he should retire. Our correspondent Lisa Holland reports now from Rome.
As the late afternoon light faded over Rome's Gemelli Hospital, and the ailing Pope Francis continued to be treated for pneumonia in the 10th floor papal rooms, his medical team gave their first briefing on his condition. After a week in hospital, doctors revealed the Pope is fighting for his life.
The question is the Pope out of danger? No, the Pope is not out of danger. And the door is open to both possibilities because of a significant infection with so many microbes, and then the appearance of bilateral pneumonia in a man we see who walks little, is in a wheelchair, and who is 88 years old.
Throughout the day, people have come to the hospital to pray for the Pope. For the world's more than 1 billion Catholics, these are uncertain times.
We need his physical presence. We need him to be with us. But that's how things are now. We are praying for a miracle.
Vatican sources are suggesting the Pope is facing a long hospitalisation. That inevitably raises questions over the leadership of the Catholic Church in the short and longer term. It's nearly 2 weeks since 88-year-old Pope Francis was seen struggling to breathe, so much so that he asked an aide to finish his homily. But amidst all the concerns surrounding the Pope's health, the retired but well-respected Cardinal Gianfranco Ravasi has controversially raised the spectre that Pope Francis may resign.
There is no doubt that if he found himself in a situation in which his ability to have direct contacts, as he loves to do, to be able to communicate in an immediate, incisive and decisive way was compromised, then I believe he could decide to resign.
Meanwhile, pilgrims continue to flock to Rome for what is a special year for the Catholic Church. Do you think that talk of resignation is a little premature?
I guess the previous Pope opened the way to these things to happen, and I guess it would be wise for him to step down. We need a strong guidance for the Church.
I think he is strong and God will show the way.
And so Pope Francis is spending another night away from the Vatican and the faithful he's made his mission to serve. Lisa Holland, Sky News, Rome.
If you have an iPhone, go to its security menu tonight and you'll see a message that advanced data protection is no longer available to new users in the UK. Well, that's because of a row between the tech giant and the government. The latter wants to access encrypted data, which it says could help protect children and identify criminals. But Apple says it's gravely disappointed and has decided to withdraw the protection as a result. Our science and technology reporter, Mickey Carroll, has more.
When you use an Apple device like your iPhone, you are in control of your data, where it is stored, and who can access it.
Data protection is as important to Apple as the power of its technology. But now that data protection is under threat. The iPhone maker is removing its advanced data protection tool in the UK, which allowed Apple users to encrypt their iCloud data like pictures and documents. Apple couldn't access it, and neither could the government. But that's now changed.
Earlier this month, it was reported that the government asked for access to that data. It was the latest step in this battle between big tech and governments. Ever since end-to-end encryption became widespread, governments have argued that it stops law enforcement agencies from doing their job, from catching criminals like paedophiles and terrorists.
Even if governments are given access to people's data, it doesn't necessarily mean they can look at it. In the UK, for example, law enforcement agencies would still have to get a warrant. So what do iPhone users think?
If it's being used appropriately and right,
it's good. It's good, it's going to look after people, benefit people, but then you've always got the concern in the back of your mind that if the government know how to do it, there are those people that already know how to use it inappropriately. They're going to use it their own ways.
I really, really don't want anybody else to know my information, and if I do, I will share it myself.
Regardless, Apple now says it can't give UK users the same protection as other people around the world.
There's a corner of the internet now which is less secure and less private, but only for UK users. So everybody else in the world can still take advantage of this.
Apple isn't happy. It said, "We are gravely disappointed that the protections provided by ADP will not be available to our customers in the UK, given the continuing rise of data breaches and other threats to customer privacy." As the battle continues between tech and governments, people's privacy is in the crosshairs. Mickey Carroll, Sky News.
The man who stabbed author Salman Rushdie has been found guilty of attempted murder. Hadi Matar rushed onto a stage in 2022 while Mr. Rushdie was preparing to give a lecture in New York. The author was left partially blind. Matar could be jailed for up to 25 years. Former Minister Andrew Gwynn is being investigated by Parliament's Standards Commissioner for actions causing significant damage to the reputation of the House. Mr. Gwynn was sacked as Health Minister earlier this month after the emergence of offensive messages in a WhatsApp group. 5 yellow weather warnings for rain and high winds have been issued by the Met Office for Sunday. It says that travel disruption, power cuts and flooding are likely, with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour and heavy rain forecast. Now, plans to explicitly outlaw drink spiking will go before Parliament in the next week. The government says the new offence, part of the crime and policing bill, would carry a prison sentence of up to 10 years. Pubs and other venues are also getting new training and tools to catch offenders. Our correspondent Ashna Hurinag saw how these would work.
Hello, you're smelling everyone. Hello.
For the first time, dogs like Major are playing a unique role in the clampdown on spiking. Sniffing out substances on night patrols are the new norm in Oxford, as drug spiking is set to become a standalone offence.
We use a whole host of different legislation at the moment. Some of it dates back to the 1860s, so it's really historic legislation that there is no one real consistent message there. So I think that will provide clarity.
We joined the Safeguarding Minister on a visit to hear from those on the front line who are trying to prosecute using these so-called archaic laws. Currently, the act of spiking falls under a number of overlapping legislative acts, which Jess Phillips says haven't been good enough.
Have victims of spiking been failed before this, then?
Well, look, I think that it would be hard to argue, wouldn't it, that victims of all crimes that I specialise in haven't been failed over the years, whether it's by systems not recognising them, whether it's by gaps in our legislation. It is a huge and vast issue, the issue of violence against women and girls, from sexual offences, domestic abuse offences, spiking offences.
Do you feel the UK is becoming less safe to be a woman? Is there a lack of value that's placed on women's lives?
Look, I don't think it is becoming less safe, if I'm honest. I think it was never safe.
Drink spiking is affecting an increasing number of men too.
It's left a big hole, but it left a big hole in our life because Greg was a major part of it.
When we started...
Mandy and Colin have been campaigning for greater awareness since their son Greg died in 2017 after his drink was spiked. He had the equivalent of 5 ecstasy tablets in his system.
Currently, we've got police forces all across the country and they're all operating slightly different. They've all maybe got their own interpretation of how they should be taking spiking offences forward. So I think once we get this law down on paper, they'll all have a clear procedure of how to follow it.
Victims want to come forward, they want to talk to us, they want to share their stories, and they want something to be done about it.
Venues are adapting.
Put them in the top of a drink, pop a straw through them, and it just seals the container so nothing can be slipped into a drink.
But whilst prevention is helpful, deterrent is the key. And it starts with upgrading a law centuries old to deal with a crime that's anything but new. Ashna Haranag, Sky News in Oxford.
Well, the Minister, Jess Phillips, there told us that the UK has never been a safe place to be a woman. And today there was a reminder of the threat from grooming gangs. 3 brothers were jailed for multiple sexual offences against young girls in Leeds and Barrow. Shaha Amran Mia on the left and Shah Joman Mia, pictured on the right, were both sentenced to life with minimum terms of about 20 years, while Shaha Alman Mia was handed a 14-year extended sentence. They were convicted in October of dozens of child sex offences between 1996 and 2010. Our home editor, Jason Farrell, spoke to one woman who saw the impact of what they did.
It was dark, it was dingy, just, if anything, it looked like a crack house. So you just walked up, it was dark stairs. Further down was either toilet and bedroom or just toilet. And then you go right and you've got some more bedrooms, but go straight along, and then there was just this big, it was a big room. It could be a bedroom, but they were using it as like a living room. But there was a load of mattresses on the floor, sheets up at the windows, and then sure there was another floor, but I never went up onto them floors.
Because, you know, we heard in the court case about, you know, these men, these brothers, in relationships, if you like, with younger girls, and obviously their defence was, well, we didn't know how young they were and stuff like that. What was your understanding of what was going on?
Oh, they knew how young they were. They knew exactly how young they were, because they didn't only have one girlfriend each of younger, they had multiple younger girls going on. Some knew about others, some never. One of the lads had a girlfriend that was older, but was still doing things with younger girls as well.
Right, who was that?
Jay.
Jay.
Yeah.
So, and did you know them all equally, kind of all 3 of the brothers?
Yeah, I got to know them all quite well, yeah.
Yeah. And how could they tell that they were younger?
It just started slipping out. I knew they were younger because I'd seen them in the school uniform, and then there was a point that they did come to the takeaways in the school uniform, so they were well aware that they were still in school. And Sarge was sometimes picking girls up from the school as well to bring them back to the takeaway after school.
What happened at the parties?
Just more men came down from Leeds, drugs, alcohol, it just seemed, they just tried to put it across as it was just a party.
Yeah.
For everyone. It wasn't anything else, it wasn't anything more, it wasn't.
So was that it, with girls just getting drunk and going home, or what?
No, they were definitely not going home. They were going on after they'd had enough of partying at Cook Street. Them and the girls would go somewhere else, preferably probably back to the takeaway, because I didn't think they had anywhere else other than the takeaway.
The crimes of 3 brothers who were jailed today. Well, we finished Sky News at 10 tonight with a disturbing insight into how artificial intelligence might disrupt an election. Voters in Germany are being exposed to far-right narratives online. Among those spreading them is an AI-generated influencer called Larissa, and she is frighteningly lifelike. Our data and forensics correspondent Tom Cheshire reports.
Meet Larissa Wagner. The first thing to know about her is she isn't real. She's an AI creation. And the second thing is she is a big supporter of the AfD, the German far-right party contesting this week's elections. Almost all her videos, ever since she began posting on X and Instagram just in September last year, have been in support of the AfD.
Alice ist die Kanzlerin der Herzen.
What we don't know is who is behind her. AI has been seized upon by the German right wing, who are using the technology a lot more than centrist and left-wing parties, both as an aesthetic and as a means of producing videos at scale. This was an advert for the now disbanded youth wing of the AfD, advocating the mass deportation of immigrants, known as remigration. The media agency behind this video told us they had created it for the AFD. And they're also one of the few accounts that Larissa Wagner follows online. Now, they refused to comment on whether they controlled it. So I messaged Larissa directly, and here's the video that she sent me.
I think it's completely irrelevant who controls me. Influencers like me are the future, because I'm one of the first. There's a lot of fuss right now, but in the future, my work will be absolutely normal. That's how it's always been with new technological innovations.
This is a strange new world, interviewing people who don't exist. But it does matter who controls accounts like these, because as well as legitimate political communication, there are also bad actors at play. The Center for Monitoring, Analysis and Strategy, CMAS, an extremism monitoring agency, has identified different Russian campaigns seeking to influence the election. Take this video. In it, an 18-year-old woman accuses a German political candidate of child abuse. The accusations are false, and the video has been made using AI. CMAS says it comes from a Russian group called Storm 1516, which also appeared to be behind a widespread influence campaign during the recent US election in support of Donald Trump.
Different Russian crowd campaigns are trying, on the one hand, to discredit established parties, and they are particularly attacking the Greens on the one side and the CDU on the other side. These are two German parties that are very clear about their support for Ukraine, and they're also trying to boost the far-right AfD party.
Another group CMAS is tracking is called Doppelganger, created in 2022. Posts from the campaign look like they could be from real people sharing their opinions online, like this one. But in fact, they're fake. And they link through to fake websites designed to look like real media, in this case, the German newspaper Der Spiegel. CMAS says there's been a big uptick in doppelganger posts in the run-up to the election. In 1 month, there was a total of 630 German language posts with typical doppelganger patterns on X alone. Sky News contacted the Social Design Agency, the Russian organisation thought to be behind the doppelganger campaign, but they did not respond. We were unable to reach anyone behind the Storm 1516 campaign for comment. There is a difference between foreign interference, murky AI accounts, and the use of AI for political speech. But the lines are blurry, and they are being deliberately blurred. Tom Cheshire, Sky News.
And the backdrop, Germany's pivotal election, which takes place this weekend, and we'll have full coverage of the results after polls close at 5 p.m. on Sunday evening. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the political commentator Tim Montgomery and the Guardian columnist Zoe Williams. Welcome both.
Thank you.
Among the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front of the Telegraph. The headline, PM to defy Trump with new aid to Ukraine. We'll be right back.